what you see in front of you is a cell. And let's say this cell is the first cell that has arisen in our planet. Now, as this is the first cell, it has a lot of resources lying around. And as a cell, all it has to do is to eat, grow, and reproduce. So, what does it do? It does not really have a lot of different things to do because it's just the first cell. So, what it does, it has to get some food to grow and reproduce. So, it randomly wanders around, and it does not really have any specialized skills. So, it randomly wanders around in the hope of getting some food in its random walk. And it does get, but as you can see, this process is very, very inefficient. So let's assume that there are a lot of such cells, which have been formed, the first cells in our planet. And these cells are all randomly wandering around in a very inefficient process of resource gathering. But then what happens? One of the cell gets changed, and this change is due to mutation, which is something inherent to the genetic code that we have in our planet. So what does this mutation give us? This mutation gives the cell a new ability. And what this ability is the presence of a receptor. What does this receptor do? This receptor can sense food. These green blocks can be sensed by the receptor, and so this receptor will move towards a gradient of increasing food, right? So whenever it senses an increasing gradient of food, it will give a signal which will make the cell move towards that certain direction. As you can see, in our certain condition, the food is present in the top right corner of the screen. So that's where our cell will go because it has new ability to detect and move towards food. Now a lot of time passes, for example a few million years, and what we get is a lot of such cells, such advanced cells if you can call them, because they have the ability to detect food. Now what happens, these advanced cells after say a few more million years come together and form a colony. Why do they form a colony? Because being together gives a lot of advantage. It can give you safety from predators. It can also lead to more resource gathering. So they form a colony. Now give a few more million years, and what happens is that they remain in colony, but each of these cells specializes. So what does specialization mean? Let's take an example of the light blue cell. It has a new receptor now, not the same food detecting receptor. This receptor can detect danger, say some toxic chemicals, and will move away. It will take the entire colony and take it away from the danger. There's another cell, another sky blue colored cell, and its only purpose is to reproduce, as in it will make more copies of itself, and itself can then make a copy of the entire organism. So as you can see, there's a clear division of labor among the members of the colony. And how do they communicate with each other? Because obviously they would have to communicate with each other for a successful and efficient relationship in a colony. So they have a very basic form of communication by the form of ion channels and diffusion, or maybe protein transport. So this is what we call multicellularity, because we have a colony which have different kind of cells which are all specialized, and we move from a single cell organism to a multicellular organism. Now what happens if you can give it a few more years? The multicellular organism will obviously, because it is very successful, it will grow, and as it grows it adds even more cells. By the addition of more cells, the problem is that communication is hampered, because all we had was those cell and those gap junctions and the diffusion and transport proteins, which is not enough to and not fast enough to send information from one point of the organism to another. So what we need now is a better way to do that, and that's where we get these highways. These highways are basically let's call them telegram cables or phone cables, and they allow very rapid passage of information from one part of the cell to another. And these are basically neurons, group of neurons. The first neurons have arisen on our planet, and this is only possible due to the evolution of voltage gated channels, voltage gated ion channels, which leads to very rapid transduction of certain information from one point of the organism to another. And this is what we call nerve nets, the very basic and the first form of neuronal organization, and we see this in organisms such as the hydra or the jellyfish. Now what happens? This gets even more complex. More cells are being added because the configuration is very successful. So more cells are being added, and now the neural net is not good anymore. We need even more and better and faster transport, and that's where is the formation of nerve cords. So nerve cords are basically the organization of these neural nets or nerve nets. So we have these different segments having a different center of organization, which then passes the information amongst itself. So we get the formation of something even more organized in the form of nerve cords. And if you give or take a few more years, now all these nerve cords have these center of organization which are called ganglia. Now if you give a few more years for evolution to occur, we see that new kinds of organisms are emerging, and for example human beings or mammals. And now humans are so complicated that nerve cords won't do. So what we need is a different form of organization, a bigger form of organization, and that is only achievable by the formation of a better organizational structure, which is called cephalization, or the formation of a brain, a central nervous system which can transmit and process information from different parts of the body. And that is my entire flash talk about. A summary: we had a cell which then became a more specialized cell, which then formed a colony, which then formed a multicellular organism, which then grew bigger to form the nerve net, which then formed these ganglia or the nerve cord, which led to the formation of cephalization or a central brain-like structure as we see in mammals. And this was my flash talk, and I'm Sumit Rai, and this was for the course of LS4105. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach me.